people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this, a little segment I like to call Ring IQ Hate Mail. Not hate of Ring IQ, at least not this time per se, hate of Eddie Hearn. Thrash Attack left a lengthy comment on my previous video regarding Lou DiBella's comments on Eddie Hearn and Eddie Hearns' response. This is what Thrash Attack had to say about it. I feel kind of sorry for Lou.
What's to feel sorry about? The decisions he made?
And to be honest, when I hear Hearn flexing how he quote-unquote makes the world of boxing go round, he has boots, as if he's prime Sugar Ray Leonard.
Well, he's a promoter. He's gonna promote his fighter. Bob Arum said Lomachenko's the best fighter he ever saw since Muhammad Ali. What do you expect?
And then he mentions Ryan and Haney and Jake Paul as if he has contracts with them. I mean, LOL. If someone told me a few years ago that Matchroom's stable was going to be this week in 2025 with all the money injections, I wouldn't have believed them.
You know what I can't believe? How willfully obtuse some of you people are. The reason he brought up those names specifically, was because Lou DiBella was taking shots at DAZN.
It wasn't just Eddie, and it wasn't just Matchroom. Lou DiBella was taking shots at the DAZN platform, so Eddie brought up some of the big names that have boxed or still box on that platform. That's what that was. And you're either pretending you didn't understand that, or you didn't understand it. Neither of which is any good.
I had to address this woefully silly comment. You're saying that Matchroom stable's weak?
Bam. Boots. Bivol. Dimitri Bivol. That's weak.
On what planet? Because it ain't this one.
Unbeaten Diego Pacheco. Unbeaten Jai Opataya. Two-time cruiserweight champion Jai Opataya. That's weak.
On what planet? Because it ain't this one.
Never mind the string of unbeaten up-and-comers they've got coming through.
Because they've got quite a few.
Unbeaten Justice Hooney, unbeaten Tira Moana,
Unbeaten Dalton Smith.
Callum Smith just beat the brakes out of Joshua Buatsi. You calling that weak?
Here's what it is. You got a lot of guys, they don't know the ball from the bounce. They don't know the business. They don't know nothing in all actuality. But they got personal feelings about people in boxing, and they think those feelings are an accurate assessment of what's going on. Matchroom stable's looking pretty good right now.
The fighters they've been promoting, and the fighters that they are going to start promoting. That's reality, whether you like Eddie Hearn or not, and I can tell that you don't. That's why you're sitting here playing Lou DiBella, the world's smallest violin, and I don't know why.
Whatever predicament he currently finds himself in is a direct result of his own decisions.
His gross overestimation of what TKO boxing is going to be the day of reckoning for all the guys that he doesn't get along with.
Did you ever stop to think why he has an axe to grind with all of these promoters?
It's jealousy. So what's to feel sorry about? It's jealousy. You just didn't have the strength of the stable to get a network deal, so they didn't give you one.
In the pity party. So when he turns around and he's taking shots at Eddie, shots at Bob, that's what that's all about. You don't like having to go through them to keep your fighters active, but that's the situation.
You don't like that Eddie Hearn is patting himself on the back for the good job he's done because you don't understand it.
I'm not telling you you have to like him as a person. I'm just saying your evaluation is off.
Way off. You think this all just boils down to signing fighters and making fights.
That's what you think the job is.
Do you see how many of Matchroom's guys have been boxing on these Saudi shows? Do you understand that every time Turkey Bank rolls a show and a Matchroom fighter fights in it, that's a guy that Matchroom doesn't have to pay?
Because it's happening on Turkey's dime. But because they are Matchroom fighters, Matchroom gets a piece of that action. So not only are they saving money from not having to do these shows, they're making money since Turkey's using their fighters.
And their fighters are still fighting on their own Matchroom promoted shows.
There's one this weekend that a Matchroom fighter is headlining, and Ammo Williams the following week George Kambosos will be headlining in Australia. They're doing shows in America, shows in Australia, shows in the UK. Their fighters are all wrapped up in Saudi. They're all over the place. They're like the flu.
And when you're a promoter in a sport of boxing, that's a good thing. They're promoting men. They're promoting women.
Eddie's promoting himself because that's his job. He's a promoter.
Oh, you empathize with little old Lou DiBella / the Green-Eyed Monster, who's only taking shots at all of these people because they're better at doing the job that he's trying to do. You know that Amanda Serrano was with Lou DiBella for a good number of years, but her career doesn't really take off until Jake Paul comes into it.
I'm not trying to say that Lou's a bad guy. I'm just saying that maybe some guys are better at doing what he's trying to do, and as a result of that, he's envious.
Well, you let your personal feelings get in the way of evaluating a situation.
All I took away from this woefully inaccurate comment is, you don't like Eddie Hearn because he's cocky.
And hey, it's a free country, so you don't have to, but I hardly think Eddie would have taken this company as far as he's taken it, because it's much bigger now than when his father was running things.
If he were more of a wallflower and more timid, like a Ben Shalom.
Sniveling and skulking in a dark corner.
Stop it.
In the old country, we have a saying. No one ever accomplished anything that was hard to do by telling themselves they couldn't do it.
Eddie's a go-getter. That's a go-getter's attitude.
Unless you're a go-getter yourself, you're probably not gonna like it. That the guy's so confident in his own abilities that he thinks so much of himself. Well, he has to, with guys like you running around.
Taking shots. Guys like Lou running around. Taking shots. And for what?
Because the guy's doing well, and he's successful. They never hate down. They only ever hate up.
And it's hate. When you try to tell me that Bam and Boots and Bivol is a weak stable.
You be hating. And that's what makes it hate, isn't it? When it doesn't even make sense.
The inexplicable disdain that one person might have for another that can't really be rationalized. They're just feelings. Feelings of hate.
When you're done throwing Lou DiBella a pity party, why don't you reread your comment? Think about what you said, where it all goes wrong.
Because this was so woefully inaccurate, I had to find a way to address it.
What has been said about Gervonta behind the scenes for years that nobody brings out, and it kind of brings to light why they keep matching him with 15 and 20 to 1 underdogs. There is a rumor that behind the scenes, the Gervonta, there's a lot of bitch in him. There's a lot of front runner in him. If you push him, he will break, he will fold. It starts to add up because Lamont is from the D.C. area. They kind of know this. They grew up around him. They fought in the amateurs.
His father, who's his coach, has coached Gervonta in fights.
So that thing sort of comes to light where it's been held back from the public with the limited opposition level that Gervonta's fought most of his career. So having said that, you don't want to start too fast. You want to measure your pressure and bring it out because you know already what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a guy that you know you'll bring the bitch out of him as the fight wears on. And you kind of started seeing that Gervonta fouling. There's an interpretation that he was trying to bite at one time. I don't really see it. I've seen a lot of people in the comments saying he was trying to bite at one time.
Shoulder strike.
Then the taking
okay, so all right, so
knee and
so you're
whatnot.
saying he has to start that earlier.
But here's the thing. If you started earlier, you're still dealing with a physically talented. Gervonta Davis is mentally weak, but he's physically talented. So the way you get a front runner is you drag him to the late rounds. Yeah. So you don't want to take all the chances early on. Especially if the front runner can punch. So otherwise, you're going to risk getting knocked out.
What if Gervonta comes a little more prepared and in better shape, and then it takes longer for him to actually get him to that point where? Because listen, it was a lot of.
Let me tell you something, Paulie. It didn't take for the Lamont Roach fight for me to see the bitch in Gervonta Davis. Avoiding Vasyl Lomachenko for 7 years, that showed me the bitch. Avoiding Tevin Farmer, who's not even known for power.
And a unification match with a multi-million-dollar offer attached to it for a one-off. You didn't have to make a commitment to Matchroom. If you like your chances, you go over there, make your millions, and go back to PBC Island.
I don't want to sound repetitive because we've been all through this over the years in video after video. The moral of the story is the bitch has always been there, right in front of you, and you're only now addressing it. What, the purses and nail polish didn't give it away?
The pink mink? I mean, does this guy gotta strut around Baltimore wearing a pair of red bottoms for you to see what's obvious?
Lamont Roach didn't tell me anything about Gervonta Davis that I didn't already know.
Bitch!
So there's gonna be a rematch And behind the scenes, they're talking about doing it in June. I don't think it was their original intention to come back that soon, but given the aftermath of that fight, they have to settle this to keep up appearances and maintain this illusion
That he's a tank.
a tank, a wrecking machine, needs 2 fights for 1 win over Lamont Roach?
I'm not trying to sell Lamont short, but for years, they've been selling everybody else short. Guys like Jamel Herring, who literally beat Lamont Roach.
I'm not gonna stop saying that until it registers.
To me, he could go in there in the second fight and knock Lamont Roach's block off. Won't matter, because you shouldn't need 2 fights to do that. Not if you are who they say you are.
And I can't help but think that this is eerily similar to what we already saw between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury in their first meeting that was scored a draw, like this was scored a draw.
Oh, there was another one.
We all know what happened in the second fight. Is that the same fate that now awaits Gervonta Davis? Can he adjust? Can he do better? Or does he end up like Wilder did in his second fight with Tyson Fury? Man alive if he does.
Yeesh.
It'll be worse than when Wilder lost to Fury in their second meeting and the third. It'll be worse than the beating that Errol Spence Jr. took at the hands of Terrence Crawford. The aftermath of Gervonta Davis potentially losing would be worse than any of that because he's all the PBC has.
One by one, their flagship fighters have been failing, have been faltering.
You don't actually need to be clairvoyant to have seen this coming. It's a story as old as time, and it's a story that time often tells.
What was hidden in darkness will eventually come to the light. All will be revealed in time.
Time will tell. It always does. That's why it would have been better for Gervonta to just quit while he was ahead and retire this year without the Lamont Roach fight. You thought you were going to have it easy, and so did the bookies. He wasn't a 20-1 underdog for no reason. So let's not now pretend that you chose him because of what a good fighter you thought he was.
Bullshit.
You picked him for the same reason Wilder picked Fury, because he thought it was going to be easy. A morbidly obese drug addict who's down in the dumps and is thinking about offing himself?
You picked him.
Lamont Roach. You picked him.
Damn sure wasn't because you thought he was the best.
So is history about to repeat itself in June when they run it back? Like I said, for me, the damage is done. You shouldn't need 2 fights for 1 win over this guy. Not if you are who they say you are.
I know you're not. I've always known.
This was inevitable, right? And frankly, Turkey making the 4 major guys all his little peons, it made this much more doable. And now you have a company capitalized on the stock exchange to 26, 27 million, depending on how you measure it.
Right.
With UFC alone, capitalized 11 billion, 26, 27 billion, 11 billion, and economically supported by the deepest pockets in the world. I mean, they're pretty much well set up for this.
Surely based on that comment, you can see how Lou's evaluation of all of this is little more than his wet dream.
That someone or someones with a lot of means and a lot of money would step in and turn the tables on the guys that have been pushing him around.
And we've been all through that. How Lou's evaluation is a gross overestimation of what's going on. It's not that TKO boxing can't be successful with so many fingers in the pie that have so much money. It can.
Of course it can.
Away from the agenda-driven spiel that we've been seeing from so many people with so many ulterior motives and axes to grind, it's possible this could work.
There are going to be growing pains. There always are. Losses at the start, adjustments, refining of strategies.
And understanding branding is one of the strengths that TKO brings to the table. They have massive platforms to advertise their brand. WWE, UFC.
What about substance, though?
I remember when I was a kid, I'd see a trailer for a movie, and the trailer gets you so excited. The music, the action, the atmosphere, so that when you go to the movie, it's just not as good as advertised. Are they in danger of that with this brand? Because they have all the means to promote it, to advertise it.
That's what happened when I saw Cabin Fever.
Where's the beef, is the question. In terms of substance, what will they have?
Boxing has been too every man for itself to do an exclusive deal with one promoter. Right now, in the weak state it's in, these guys come in, they're going to be the dominant promoter. And it creates a whole different thing. And then shedding those belts, no 7 champions per weight class, no 18 weight classes. I think by the way, that they should look carefully at the original weight classes and maybe come out somewhere in between, because otherwise they're going to deprive themselves of some great fighters making great fights. Because
how many events would you suggest they do?
I don't know.
On
I don't have any
average.
suggestion. And by the way, I think that's going to be dictated by to some degree by the success they have.
Yeah.
How many platforms open the doors for them, right?
I think they're going to be.
I don't think they're going to put. I think there'll always be other boxing. I don't
They're
know
going to
that
be very successful because they're going to get the ESPN deal. They're going to be on Netflix. No one has better relationships with the media companies than Nick. Dana's a lifer in this business. He's cutthroat. He's ruthless, but he gets.
It's going to be much harder for an
And then you got the pockets. It's like the greatest trio for this type of takeover.
I think there's a difference between wanting to launch a successful company and taking over, wanting to take everything over and run everybody else out of town.
They're conflating those two things. Of course Dana and Nick and Turkey want this to work. Of course they do.
I already said, I'm not sold on this notion that they're going to monopolize the entire industry and put everybody out of business, but that doesn't mean they can't be successful. I think the next Olympics and what amateurs come out of that's going to be a very important period for this fledgling company.
So many people assume that because Dana White is involved in this thing, that he's going to pay the boxers the way he's going to pay the UFC fighters. The most I can say is, if he does that, then it ain't going to work.
You're going to have amateurs coming out of the amateur ranks going into the pros with offers to go to Matchroom, offers to go to Top Rank, what have you. And you got to secure some of those blue chip prospects for yourself. To do that, you have to pay to play.
Pockets as deep as these guys got. You got to spend a little to get a little.
Now, the first year or two of this thing is largely experimental in order to iron out the kinks in this big machine. But when those next Olympics roll out, and when those amateurs that box in those Olympics decide to go pro, you better pick some of them up.
The future talent to usher in the next generation of your brand, your stable, your boxers.
Supposed to be your flagship fighters. And a bit about the weight classes. I mean, they're saying that now, that they're only going to have the traditional 8. But that can change. That can change over time. If they identify a good enough opportunity, maybe they want to come off of that stance. Not dissimilar from DAZN. At first, they didn't want to do pay-per-views, but then
they changed their mind. They got pay-per-view functionality, and they've done their own string of pay-per-views.
Just saying, don't get married to the idea that whatever you're hearing now will still be the case a year, 2, 3 years from now. Things change. This can work, even if it's not the day of reckoning that some people are making it out to be.
They might get somewhere with this. We'll see.